Catherine, welcome to Permastoked. How are you?
Hi, I'm stoked. How are you?
Right on. I'm great. It's great to see you. Happy International Surfing Day.
Yeah, I just put two and two together, and I was pretty happy that I get to talk to you on this special day.
Yeah, did you celebrate that somehow?
Well, pretty much, yeah. I didn't really realize it was International Surfing Day until tonight, but I surfed all day long, so I figure that's a pretty good way to celebrate.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So are
Really.
you back up and running Tofino paddle surf now with all this COVID stuff or?
Yeah, we opened up with the resort where we operate. They opened on June 1st and we opened on June 4th with the BC parks. My thought there was that I didn't want to kind of add to the craziness of our local beaches here in Tofino. They're already so overcrowded at the moment, and they were especially overcrowded when the parks were closed.
Hmm.
So I thought if any of my rental boards were going to go out, I would wait till there was a little bit more space for everyone. So yeah, it worked out really well, and it's been interesting with all the new policies, and we actually have a brand new shop right on the beach that we're really excited about.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we had a big move, kind of unplanned, but it all worked out in the end. And we also, yeah, we just didn't know what to expect, So like most businesses, we weren't really staffed appropriately, especially because a lot of our staffing comes from out of town, and nobody was
Hmm.
traveling, and nobody knew if they should come and move here and all that
Yeah,
good stuff. So I've been working very hard, and today was my big day off to
nice.
celebrate surfing. Yeah.
So is Tofino comfortable having outsiders come back in now, or are people still a bit weary?
I would say there's definitely mixed feelings.
Hmm.
You know, as you can imagine, Tofino was interestingly quiet. It definitely reminded me of the old days.
Wow,
Um,
yeah.
through the winter, sometimes almost to the point where it was eerie. I'd drive out onto the street and there just wouldn't be another car,
Hmm.
like forever. Like I drive to town and I wouldn't see another car. It was,
Wow.
yeah, it was really cool. So I think a lot of people kind of really appreciated it and kind of remembered what it was like to kind of have our town back,
Hmm.
for the people who do live here. And so it's been interesting. Obviously there's the future to think about. I don't know what winter is going to be like. We
Hmm.
missed out on spring break. April and May are usually big months for us,
Yeah.
and June obviously is a little bit slower. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. I think for the most part people are happy to be back at work, making us feel like we might be able to eat this winter.
Yeah.
Although we always have Dungeness and salmon and rice to defer to. But um, yeah, and then there's just respecting the First Nations communities too, and their wishes to keep their knowledge keepers healthy and safe. So yeah, there's I think there's mixed feelings, and I think in general we're pretty happy to have people back
Hmm.
and kind of go back to feeling a little bit normal, and everyone's just being careful,
Yeah.
and lucky for us, the majority of what we do is just outdoor living.
Yeah,
We are out
exactly.
here to enjoy the outdoors, and yeah, there's just
Yeah.
not really any danger on the beach or in the surf.
Just
So
keep one board in between you and another person and you're fine probably.
that's right, no party waves.
Yeah, yeah. So you were mentioning that it's pretty quiet and you might have to go eating directly from the sea. So I was, in preparation for this interview, I usually do, I do some research and it's really been fun because I've read some books and articles and things. But for you, there was like an overload of content,
No.
especially video content. And one video was kind of freaking me out. You had all this oil on you and you were like, oh my God, there's this oil spill. And even though this video is like 6 years old, I'm seeing it for the first time and I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? But it was like, what was this? Some kind of fossil fuels, like almost like an April Fool's joke, but bringing
Yeah.
awareness for oil spills.
Well, I got to say, it makes me happy to think that you believed me. I don't
Yeah.
consider myself a very good actor at all.
Wow, yeah, I was sold. That was Oscar winning for me. Yeah.
Yeah, we work pretty closely with a couple of the different environmental groups, and that was a project that was put on by one of the local groups called Clackwood Action, and they're super involved with the protection of the wild salmon and the elimination of the salmon farms. So it was, I can't remember. I think it was an April Fool's. Yeah, I think it was an April Fool's joke. But it was, to get the attention of people, and it was during the time. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, it was with the pipeline, and then just the worry of the oil tankers going by our coastline, and the inevitability of something bad happening, and the oil ending up on our beaches. So yeah. So if those sorts of things are asked of me from my friends who run those groups, or from anyone, I'm like always happy to help in any way I can. And if I can act and scare someone and make them think twice, then I'm happy with that.
Yeah, for sure. Living in the city, it sort of feels like out of sight, out of mind a lot of the times, but watching that video and being such a lover of Tofino and appreciating everything about it, I could really feel just how devastating that would actually be if something were to happen. Like, that would be terrible.
Yeah, well, that's really cool to hear your perspective on that. That was the intention of the video. So
yeah, well, it worked on me anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, on that note too, I mean, one of the things that I sort of consider my mission is to help people love and enjoy the ocean and surfing, whether it's paddleboarding or swimming or boogie boarding or whatever it might be, in hopes that, exactly like you said, if you start to love it, then you feel a connection, and the desire to protect and do something about devastation is a little bit closer to home.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my deep dive on the internet, there were tons of videos, and I got to watch a really cool video. I think it was called Bruhwiler Country. So how do you feel about that term, by the way? Like,
oh, I don't know. That video is also just a joke, but oh, the good old internet. Yeah, that was actually a project that was spearheaded by a production company out of LA. And they wanted to potentially do a reality show, which we then just were like, we just didn't really want to turn into the Kardashians or anything.
Yeah, like really. What would it have been called? Like Surfing Canucks, or like, what was the angle?
Well, that was it. I mean, I have a pretty big and diverse family, and there's always lots going on, and then we have all our friends and all the crazy characters in Tofino, and more than enough stuff to entertain.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, I don't watch TV, so I'm kind of a bad judge of any of it, but from what I know of reality TV, it's pretty contrived, and it's just not a healthy place to be a part of, I don't think.
Yeah, they want drama.
They want drama, and I do not want drama.
Yeah, I can go for that. So, but it was a really cool video, though, in terms of capturing a bit of your childhood, and so maybe tell us a bit about growing up and the story of you with these two brothers. So it sounds like you guys were out in the woods a lot and got into surfing. Like, what did your childhood look like?
It was pretty idyllic, actually. I think we were really lucky. We grew up right on the beach when there wasn't much else there. And there were, it was cool because there were a bunch of families there, and none of us went to school, and there were tons of kids, and we were just kind of like wild bunch roaming.
Mm-hmm.
And back in those days, you know, obviously there were no cell phones and stuff. And I compare my upbringing to even my children's upbringing. You know, I kind of, for the most part, knew where they were and what they were doing, but I was not like that for us. Like, we were just out, and I don't even remember talking to my parents like once ever after I was 5. I was just like, see ya. So yeah, it was fun. And you know, it was kind of by accident that we got into surfing. But that's kind of an entire other story. And yeah, it was just kind of really just the Wild West, like how you would sort of imagine it. You know, our playground was the islands and the rocks and the forest, and we'd set up camp in the summertime, you know, out at Rosie Bay on the grassy field there on the point, and bring our surfboards and run home for supplies every once in a while. And yeah, we were just hanging outside. That's just what we did.
Yeah. So how'd you end up on a surfboard for the first time?
You know, I don't actually remember my very first time on a surfboard, but I do remember my very first green wave, you know, kind of like looking down and seeing like the big, beautiful like face of the wave and all the way down to the bottom of the ocean. And yeah, I was just reminiscing about that actually today with a friend right at Cox Bay, because he said, I think I caught my very first green wave here. And I said, yeah, this is exactly where I caught mine too. But there was a little surf shop in town, and my dad would do a lot of trade work. He's a faller, so he you know, cut some trees down for the woman who owned it, and she got us all these little, back then all it was like a Farmer John, a little jacket with the but the sleeves were made of plastic, like they were windsurfing jackets.
Oh, really?
So we would wear those. We would wear those. And then, you know, we'd go out and play in the waves, and we'd come in with our lips are purple and our hands and our feet were frozen, and we'd all sit in the bath and fight over who got to sit closest to the hot water tap. So that's where the water was the best source of heat. And then at some point, our neighbor had a surfboard that because there was a few like expats around, and they had boards. So our neighbor had one, and he took his son and then my older brother out surfing a couple times. And, you know, my older brother was hooked, and then kind of whatever he did, we did. And my dad took him down to California. We had a Volkswagen van that was like white and orange, like the classic, you know, round shell thing. And he drove down and came back with a bunch of surfboards for us all. And they went on like a little surf mission just to like check it out. Like, and back then, no internet, like no connections. You just like get in the van, you drive down to San Clemente, and you pull up, and you're like, oh my God, like surf shops and surfboards and surfboards. Whoa, you know. So he loaded the car with boards and came back and gave me this, like, I think my first board was like a 6'4". It was a quad fin brewer shape, and I couldn't surf it at all. Like, I, you know, I was 10 years old and just flailing and couldn't stand up on it. And I think it took me a solid 2 years to figure out how to stand up on it.
Oh, wow.
And back then there was no coaching. There were no instructors. The equipment was not, you know, built for accessibility. I had a man's wetsuit by the time I was 12, a man small that was like huge on the shoulders, and I was like practically drowning in it, you know. It actually always amazes me, because I teach surfing. I started teaching surfing when I was about 13, and I think about the success rate of my students when we go out for a first time lesson, and they're actually standing on the board riding all the way to the beach, and I'm just like, oh my God, it took me 2 years to figure out how to do that.
It really makes a difference.
So equipment makes a difference, but like when you don't know, or we just didn't know any better. And my dad didn't bring me a soft top to learn on. You know, he didn't bring me a 9-footer. He brought me a like shortboard that was made for, you know, a 12-foot pipe.
So was your dad surfing with you guys too, or just the three of you figuring it out?
No, neither of my parents surf, but they they just love hanging out on the beach. And, you know, we lived right on the beach, so we just had dinner out there every night. And they really made the most of it. And my mom would sit on the beach. Like she can swim, but she's not, she's not an ocean person or anything, but she would just sit there and sew or knit or darn socks or whatever she did, and just count heads and just like make sure I can still see 8 kids out there. Okay.
Yeah.
Then she'd count again. If one of us started to drown, I don't know if she would have been able to come save us, but
yeah,
she was just accounted for us anyways.
So most kids were at the playground, but you guys were out in the ocean. That's wicked.
Yeah.
Those were
My
your
dad
monkey
actually
bars.
built us a huge half pipe in our yard too. So
Oh,
if
wow.
we weren't surfing, then we were doing that.
Wow, you had the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Right on. So you mentioned so Tofino, I'm guessing this is the late 70s and 80s. So what did it look like back then compared to now? Like in terms of, I'm aware of the town and all the shops and things.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's hard to remember exactly, but I mean, just to give you an example, when we first, my parents moved here when I was 11 months old. And we lived in a trailer that she bought like over mail, like sent a check in the mail to like a second cousin of hers who owned it. Bella Pacifica Campground was a trailer park.
Okay.
So that's where I grew up till I was 5. And then they scrounged together some dollars and bought a waterfront property at South Chesterman's for like 20 grand.
Wow. Oh,
yeah.
My word.
And it was a gravel road. So that all the Chesterman's was a gravel road. The Wick Inn wasn't there. Cox Bay had no hotels. Pacific Sands was there, but that was the only one. And yeah, so Chesterman's Beach and Cox Bay were part of like a regional district that kind of belonged to Port Alberni almost. So there was no taxes, no pavement, everyone was on like their own sewer and well and all that. And then the district of Tofino got savvy and they thought, well, we should take Chesterman's and have waterfront property taxable. So at the point that they did that, they came in and had everyone hook up into municipal water and sewer, paved the road. And then that year the taxes went up so high that most of the families had to sell because they just were taxed out of their lots, and including my parents. So, they sold for very little, and the next year the properties were worth like four times as much or something.
Wow, unreal.
Bit of a sad scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was there a lot of resentment for all these changes and the sort of tourism coming in and things, or was it embraced? Or
I honestly think it was gradual enough that everyone sort of just kind of went with the flow, which is sort of the way it is here anyways. I mean, you don't really necessarily realize how precious a place is, because back then it was a logging fishing community. Like my parents literally moved here so that my dad could be a logger because he couldn't find work anywhere else, So I think it's been interesting for sure. And I do think Tofino has a lot of growing to do and thinking and changing and really like looking into the future so that we can adapt in a way that is sustainable for not only the actual physical land, but the beaches and for the residents who do live here. Because greed can get in the way, and it's happened and it's happening as we speak. So there definitely needs to be some conversation around that. But everyone needs to feel the same way. It's hard when you have people that don't live here that are making a crap ton of money. So they don't care how crowded the beach is, really.
Yeah.
Why would they? But if you have a family and you take your kids to the beach and they can't even catch a wave because there's 20,000 soft tops doing lessons and no sort of cap or regulation around it, that's not very fun.
So finding the balance.
Totally. Yeah. Like most things, it's just about finding the balance. And I think it's happening. The conversation is started, and I think it's going to go well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So you said you started teaching when you were 13. So what did you want to be when you grew up, or did you just always know you're going to be a pro surfer, dude?
Pro surf bum.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you know, I still maybe to a fault live in the moment. So I can't say that I ever thought that I wanted to be this, that, or the other thing. Just kind of took it a day at a time. At one point after I graduated, I went to nursing school for 3.5 years. And then I decided that I just didn't want to do it. I did well, and I felt like I could do it, but what I realized was that I was thinking the whole time that I wanted to be a midwife, and I thought, man, I have to work in these horrible hospitals for 5 years, and then I got to go back to school, which is kind of horrible.
Yeah.
I was like, that's 10 years of my life. You know, I'm going to be 30 years old by the time I have this thing that I want. And I just didn't want it bad enough. So I started my own family instead, birthed my own children. And
right on. Yeah. So, okay. So, you know, for me, I'm really curious, you know, you guys, so would you be the first female pro surfer in Canada?
Yeah.
Wow. And your brother, the first guy surfer?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. First paid professionals, I guess.
Yeah. So how does that even happen? Like, how do you become the first female pro surfer in Canada? What was that story?
Yeah, well, I guess, you know, I owe a lot of it to my brother. I kind of followed in his footsteps for sure on that one. He, you know, was so talented by the time he was 12. There was already a pretty big snowboard and surf community from Vancouver, group of guys that would come out and surf and bring boards, and they'd have little contests and party their brains out. And we were just like little kids, and we'd like come in and join the contest. And, you know, he was like 12, and he would like win against all these big guys. And then my little brother was like 10, and he would get second. Yeah. And I don't actually know. I wish I knew, and I will ask him, but I don't actually know how it happened that he first got sponsored. But he also started, well, we all kind of simultaneously were working, you know, surf school stuff, teaching surf lessons, and his camp got picked up by Quicksilver and Roxy, so they would sponsor the camps, and we would do these big Roxy camps. And I just sent them a letter, and I said, hey, like, I'm teaching all your camps, and I think you should give me some free wetsuits. And I just like sent them a little letter in the mail, and they said okay, and then they started paying me to ride for them. So that was pretty exciting.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
So, but at that time, were the tournaments and things, were they coming to Tofino at all, or were you having to go to other places?
Yeah, we did. I mean, we would go to the ISA Worlds as juniors. We went. So we would travel, you know, to California, Brazil, Portugal, like anywhere where they were. Every year we would put a team together and head there. And then there would be like little local contests. I think Roxy put on a contest a couple years in a row. When it first started happening, West Beach was putting on little surf contests.
Okay.
And then my brother and I, with friends, we'd travel down to California and go and do little contests here and there. But that was pretty small scale compared to, you know, to what the kids, like including my own son, are doing now. Like they're literally traveling around the world, like doing world circuit contests.
Incredible.
So yeah.
Did I read that your son and daughter are involved in pro surfing?
My son is. My daughter is not.
Okay. Oh, okay.
She's an artsy musician type, very talented.
Okay,
and
nice.
My son also loves music, but he's really into surfing.
Awesome. So, you know, and another thing you kind of touched on, so like Team Canada or the Surfing Team Canada, I mean, how does that even work? What's the infrastructure like for that? I mean, who even organizes that? And,
How even, what?
yeah, like how does that even work?
Yeah, it's an organization called CSA Surf Canada, and they put on contests every year, and then pretty much, unfortunately, the team has decided, like, kind of based on this one contest,
Hmm.
which is really hard in surfing because it's a 20-minute heat. But yeah, so that's basically how it works. And then anyone who's a Canadian passport holder from around the world is welcome to join and try out for the team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so I would guess that this team is just extremely Tofino heavy then.
It's pretty Tofino heavy. We have I actually think we only have 2 people from Tofino on the team.
Okay.
The team that was supposed to go to the World ISA event that was going to determine who could go to the Olympics.
Hmm.
So they would have had, like, whoever went would have had to have done like X amount of good, gotten to a certain level to even be considered for the Olympics. So yeah, there's Pete and Mateo were the 2 Tofino locals, and then the other guy is a pro surfer from Australia, who grew up there, and then a professional surfer from Hawaii, on the male side. And then on the female side, another like WSL, like world champion
Wow.
professional surfer from Hawaii, a woman named Paige, and then another girl from California called
Wow.
Bethany.
But they're all Canadian citizens now, and therefore,
They all have Canadian passports. Yes.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
they don't live in Canada, but they are Canadian. Yes.
Oh, I see. You've been out at Tofino a long time. You've seen the trends kind of come and go, and you're working your way up the surf ladder. I mean, your statistics are. I mean, are they even written anywhere?
No.
Yeah, I was looking it up. It's like Queen of the Peak this, and Billabong that, and I'm like, I don't know. I can't keep track of this.
You know what? It's actually really funny you say that, because if someone asked me for my resume, like, I wouldn't be able to give it to them.
Yeah.
I have not written it down. I could not tell you. I couldn't remember. But yeah, I've had the fortunate luck to do very well in most of the events I've joined. The competition is getting stiffer and stiffer, obviously. People are traveling, they're training harder, they're competing at world class levels. And these are the women that I compete against.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm just happy if I go out there and just put up a fight. That's kind of always my attitude, and I always
Yeah.
manage to do that. So
And I would imagine that there's quite a camaraderie between the athletes. Like, I know you guys are competing against each other, but it's such a niche sort of thing already.
definitely, yeah, I think the competition really only happens when we're out there in the heat of the moment, and a heat lasts 20 minutes and then it's
Hmm.
over.
Yeah, and then everybody's friends.
Yeah, and then you're high-fiving again. And I mean, even in the water, it's friendly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I wonder about that too, because I am competitive for sure. Like, I do like to compete. I do like to win. I don't like to lose, um, but I also don't value it more than I value friendships. I don't
Mm.
value it more than I value a good time or a smile or a high five.
Yeah.
And I know that I know it's hurt me, quote unquote, hurt me competitively, but at the end of the day, I sleep better if
Hmm.
that's my priority. And I've never really experimented with being like super hardcore competitive. And I have wondered what that would be like to be so single-mindedly focused. But I don't think I have it in me. I
Yeah.
have way too many things I love and enjoy. And, I've a massive family that I absolutely adore. And, my daughter, who's 22, has a 2-year-old daughter. So I'm actually a grandma. And
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
because I read you were you said something like you wanted to be the first grandma to win the Queen of the Peak.
did I say that?
Yeah, another statistic. Put that on your
Oh,
baseball card.
yeah, well, I did.
Oh,
So
that's incredible. So when you were growing up, you were basically probably one of the only females surfing. So what has it been like to see that change and that explosion?
yeah, it's been really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very like it's very personal to me. As I watch it happen, I just can't believe how far it's come,
Hmm.
and just how many women are out there and how amazing the equipment is, and there's so much support. And the women that are kind of at the top of their game here are just absolutely like shredding. And yeah, it's really cool to see. It's one of those things that, looking back, I would never have imagined it. You almost can't imagine it.
Yeah.
It's really inspiring, actually. And the really great thing about surfing is that it's not something you ever stop learning at.
Yeah.
You're always getting better. Like, I'll be getting better until I'm 100 years old.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm a grandma, and every day I surf, I learn something new. And that's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really fun.
So for me, my story is, actually I find some similarities listening to you and your brothers, just because for me, I was a kid and, kind of off to myself too, right? And figuring things out and didn't really fit into things. So when I found surfing on the Great Lakes, that was a big deal for me. But the intervals in between surfing, like it wasn't enough. It wasn't consistent enough that I got to go every day and really get polished. And so, you know, when I don't go surfing for a couple months, then I get out to Tofino. It's always like kind of getting the rust off a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, by the end of the weekend, you're feeling really good. And then you go away for another couple months, and then, it's the same kind of thing. So I actually found when I came to Tofino last year and I took that SUP Surf lesson with you, I felt like I learned so much in that probably 2 or 3 hours that I hadn't known about in 20 years. That
Oh,
has,
cool.
really helped me ever since. Yeah, like even some of the things like, you know, ducking and, starfishing and some of these things like that, that I don't know, seem like no brainers. But when you don't have anybody actually teaching you, like I never had a mentor, I was,
Yeah.
completely figuring this out on my own. So that was great. I had a blast during that lesson with you guys. That was so much fun. And then I actually was back just a few months after that, and I got to take part in the big SUP symposium, like 2 or 3 days of SUP surfing. That was just a riot.
That's the ticket, is that kind of like a couple days in a row like that. That'll make you feel like you're on top of the world for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that was better. And then I was getting the angles and things. I wasn't just doing these straight rides, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been like so isolating on the lakes. I almost can't even imagine. I mean, that is some extreme pioneering there.
Yeah, it was, but it sort of makes for a good story. And that's
Yeah,
what excites me now is that, I started, that was about 1999, and I was totally by myself. I had, two other friends. They'd come once in a while. But there was this crew from Michigan, and they were really hardcore, and they were really good surfers. And, they've been in a bunch of movies and things. So I was pretty stoked whenever they came over, and I kind of took what I could get from them. So I always knew I was part of something that was bigger than what I saw. But really, it's only been like I've been living in Vancouver since 2008. And it's only been during this last 12 years I've seen it literally explode, like on the Canadian side anyway. I know in the US there was always something happening, but in Canada there's multiple shops in Toronto now and all along the Great Lakes. So it's just got me really stoked because, I mean, for me, the city has always just been like a stopover. We're come here, kind of do the career thing for a bit, and then we gotta get back to that small town life that we grew up, closer to nature, on the
yeah,
water. So for me, that was always, we're either moving to Tofino and that's our life, or we're going back home somewhere on the water and near some woods. So that's a bit of a bummer if there was no surf scene. So the fact that there's something for me to go back to now as we're sort of planning this next stage, just got me really excited, actually.
Yeah, you might find yourself feeling like a big old local, putting out the vibe and telling people to get off your waves.
Yeah, I know. Like, I'm actually, when I talk to people, I'm kind of getting this credibility. It's sort of funny because literally, like, yeah, I just felt like, I was made fun of constantly. You can't
I'm
surf a
sure.
lake, you can't surf a lake. And then now there's all these other people doing it. And, people
Yeah.
even asking me questions like, how'd you guys, track the weather? What kind of wetsuits did you wear? Stuff like this, right? I mean, my first wetsuit was a diving wetsuit, like a two-piece bear thing, the Farmer John with the top, and then my second surfboard, I had it mailed to me, and when it arrived, it was supposed to be flown, but it was, from the West Coast, came on a truck. So when I got it, there's this huge chunk out of the side of it. So I had to get it repaired. Well, it's not like I have the local surf shop to take it to. So I had to take it to like a sailboat repair shop. And I mean, they didn't really know. I mean, they were just kind of figuring it out. I don't think they knew anything about.
They're like, what is this thing?
Yeah, like they don't know anything about rocker or anything. So I don't really know how they repaired it, but I don't know. It works anyhow.
Yeah.
So going back to.
Sometimes you just need something that floats.
Yeah, and that's what it did. And the first wave I rode, honestly, it was on a windsurfing board. And that's all it took. I was just super stoked. Yeah. So what excites me now is, and you know this very well, is the introduction of stand-up paddleboards. I think has really opened up a whole nother realm on the lakes. Like, I really think those boards were made for the lakes, and some of those really small days can suddenly be a lot more fun.
For sure. I agree 100%. And I mean, the beauty too for us here, even on the nice days when we go out at Mackenzie Beach, when it's knee high or whatever, is like, I can go out in my bikini, which is unheard of. The water's freezing here. Maybe at the lakes it's a bit better, but just the ability to dress down and kind of shed a layer is, for me, I really like it. I love that. And I love the cross training that paddle surfing gives me. I sort of like default to my shortboard for sure. But I think paddleboarding will, it'll be the thing that'll keep me out there till I'm 120 for sure.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, it's been a great form of exercise. I know during these COVID times, I think I would have went mental if I didn't have my paddleboard to at least just go bomb around in Falls Creek.
Yeah, that's so cool. Right on. Good for you.
So what did that transition look like from surfing to paddleboarding?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. We spent, myself and my ex-husband and my two kids, we were living in Mexico for about 10 years. Mm-hmm. So my kids actually grew up there.
Okay.
And we lived in a really special place. It was like a perfect little like Mexican Malibu wave. And I had friends there who had friends, where they were from, and ties back to Hawaii. And we had a lot of Hawaiians coming with their paddle boards. Jerry Lopez would come down with a bunch of boards, and we'd hop on his boards and try. So he's actually the first person I went stand-up paddleboarding with.
Amazing.
Yeah, and he came down and did a little camp, and it was incredibly expensive. And the guy that was putting it on owned a hotel, and I just begged him. I said, "Can you please just let me do it for free? Mm-hmm. I'll come and clean toilets. I don't care." And they did. They let me do the camp for free. So I spent 5 or 7 days with Jerry and his crew, and then the other participants of the camp. And I got the most improved award. I'd never been on a paddleboard before, and I was trying to surf the thing. And as a surfer, you get on a paddleboard, you have no clue how to use a paddle. Mm-hmm. It's just so backwards, you're paddling backwards and doing everything wrong. So I know very well how to paddle surf wrong.
Mm,
Coming
yeah.
from a surf, having no experience with a paddle and not knowing any of my flat water skills, and just not knowing how to use a paddle at all. So that was pretty hard at the beginning, but I did catch on. And then obviously once I was on the wave and reading the waves and stuff was, fairly natural for me. And then, so that was basically it. And then just paddle surfing the little waves on that point when it was small, and kind of watching the growth of paddleboard down there first.
Okay.
And I knew I was going to move back to Canada because my daughter was 12, and it was just time for us to come home. And I didn't really want to compete with the surf schools. It was kind of what I was like, I know how to kind of make easy money teaching surfing, but my brothers have a surf school and there's so many surf schools. I'll just try to find something different. Like I just wanted to do something different, and I wanted to work on the beach. I wanted to work outside. I wanted to be sharing my passion and my skills that I knew. I didn't want to freeze my ass off. So I didn't really want to stand in the water pulling people into waves. And I wanted something that my kids could come with me. No matter what, they could be at the beach with me. They could come on a paddleboard with me. Like it didn't matter. So, with the encouragement of a couple people, that were saying, oh yeah, I think it's a good idea. Then I thought, well, you know what, I'm just going to start a paddleboard school and take people out. And, and I just started it out of my truck, and everyone thought I was crazy. Like no one had even seen a paddleboard in Tofino. They were like, what is this thing? And I was like, well, let me show you. I can hang out, I can surf, and I don't even get my hair wet.
Yeah, really.
So yeah, that's kind of how that happened. And then the other really cool thing that, kind of helped me with feeling inspired was with Quicksilver, because my brother Raf and I were both sponsored by Roxy and Quicksilver. And we had every year they would do this, like they would run this camp for, like, Quicksilver would come here with a bunch of pros, and they would bring like their top accounts from the different surf shops around Canada out to Tofino for a week and rent a big house at South Chesterman's. And we had like Dave Kalama came. That was like,
oh wow,
that actually might have been even before the Jerry Lopez thing.
Yeah,
I can't remember which one. That might have been the very first time I went paddle boarding. It was in the waves at Cox down by Maltby Road with Dave Kalama.
Wow.
And what's that really famous, I'm gapping on his name, the really famous windsurfer guy, like the most famous. Is it Robbie Nash? Sure. Robbie Nash.
Okay.
Yeah. Like Robbie Nash of Nash. And I carried a heavy whopper all the way down the Maltby Trail, all the way down to the rocks at Maltby, down at Lando's. And I just was like, holy shit, this sucks. I am never doing this again.
Yeah, that's the one thing about them. They're a heavy board.
Yeah, well, that's why I ride a tiny one now. But I agree.
Okay.
And then like over the years, like Tom Carroll was here and Barton Lynch and like, it was cool. Like I got to, all these guys are so into paddle surfing. Like they just love it. All these ex-pros, like they are just on it.
Really? So what do you think the appeal is for everybody, these guys?
I think I don't know. I should have asked them, but maybe, I would guess that it's like kind of like how it is for me. When you surf so much, it's just like another thing to do. Like it's another way to ride waves. So it's entertaining. It's fun. And personally, and I'm sure it's the same for them, like I love the challenge. Like I find it very different than surfing, but so satisfying when I like beat the challenge and I'm like, I got a sick wave and I did a really good turn on this giant board with this big paddle. And so, and also, they're older guys. I don't know. I'm sure their shoulders are maybe shot from paddling on their stomachs their whole lives. And it's great exercise. Like it's absolutely epic cross training. And if waves aren't pumping, why wouldn't you want to be on a paddleboard?
Yeah. I know it's a hell of a core workout, and I find you can get to the back way quicker.
Yeah, for sure.
But when I went with you for the first time, Yeah, I was thrown off by some of the things. The thing that kept getting me was the fact that I could catch a wave just in my square stance. Like I
Yeah.
kept trying to go into surfer stance, but then that wasn't working out.
Yeah.
And then you told me, you're like, no, just stay in square stance, and then I kept thinking I had to make the shift before the wave came.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
then you said something to me, and I did it after, and that changed everything. That was like, wow, that just took so much of the difficulty out of this for me.
For sure. I mean, because the difficulty is basically pivot turning. If you're already in your surf stance, pivot turning into the wave with speed while it's bumpy and choppy, and you're trying to get your position right, and all this stuff's going on. And if you're not super proficient at that, it's just such an added challenge. And it is necessary to surf like that if the waves are big and they're steep. Like you can't paddle in your square stance, obviously, because you need to be able to do some weight shifting. But yeah, if you take a student out in 1 foot surf and it's soft and inconsequential, like then that wave allows for that paddling into it within your square stance, which in your case, if you've never done it, is way more familiar and comfortable.
Yeah.
And it's a great stepping stone,
Mm-hmm.
and then the great thing about that is you can go home and paddle Falls Creek or your local lake or whatever and practice those pivot turns till you got them nailed, and the next time you come out, then you'll pivot turn into waves.
Yeah.
So yeah, some fun, lots of fun transferable skills from the flat water and the surf, which is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. So that's really cool that you found your niche and wow, yeah, because I mean, Tofino is so saturated with surf schools. It's incredible that you could carve something out for yourself. So how do you feel about when new things come out? I mean, now there's foiling, there's e-foils. I mean, are we going to
Yeah, I
see
mean,
these things at an e-foil school, or?
what was the last thing you said?
I said, are we going to see like an e-foil school out in Tofino,
Oh goodness.
or kite
I
surfing?
I don't know. I mean, maybe foiling's a little bit different, but I kind of think it's not. And I could be totally wrong, and maybe people think I'm, being an ass for saying this, but I kind of feel like a lot of the sports that come about are because like sports kind of related to surfing are come about because people don't have access to good waves.
Yeah.
So if you can go, like, people here surf and they don't
Mm-hmm.
paddle surf and they don't windsurf and they don't kiteboard, and it's because we have waves 365 days a year. And
Yeah.
in my mind, and again, I could be wrong, surfing is actually the best. It
Yeah.
is the most fun thing you can do out of all
Mm-hmm.
those things. So,
Like
I
the
even like,
source.
what's that?
It's like the source, like it's the
Totally.
mothership, and everything is the
Yeah, and everything else is kind of like fluff. Like you do it because the conditions are right. Foiling started because they were trying to paddle into jaws, and there was too much chop on the wave. So they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, then they, Laird and the Dave or whatever, they invented the foil, and it's made for surfing 100-foot waves with chop that you could never survive on a surfboard.
Yeah.
So, and I know like a lot of my friends in Maui, they all foil and they all, do the kite foiling and all that, but they do that because it's so windy that they can't surf. But I can guarantee you, on a flat or on a good day where there's no wind blowing and it's glassy, they aren't saying, oh damn, I wish it was windy so I could go foiling. They're grabbing the surfboards and they're like paddling out there as fast as they can, so I don't know. And again, like, it's fun to have those other things to do if you live in a place where the water is warm, the air is boiling hot, and you need to find ways to get in the water.
Mm.
That's kind of the other funny thing around here is I think people don't necessarily go too far out of their way to get in the water necessarily, because putting on a wetsuit and jumping in the cold water is hard enough to do on a good day. To do something you absolutely love, like go surfing. You're not going to be like, oh, I'm really bored. Oh, it's so hot out. I want to like jump in the ocean right now. Like it does happen, but it's not the same. It's not like running out in the ocean in your board shorts that you're sitting on the couch wearing. It takes a certain level of motivation for sure here. And yeah, I think it's fun to have, personally, I think it's really fun to have different tools to use in different conditions.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that I'm not limited to just one thing or the other. I'm really stoked that I can, if the conditions call for it, I'll grab my paddleboard. If the conditions call for it, I'll grab my shortboard or my longboard or my boogie board or my fins and my hand plane, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the ultimate way to go for sure. And
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I'm curious because I've seen those foil boards and I've seen videos of people just, totally flat water, jumping off a dock onto it and pumping it, and they're able to get a ride, so that seems like a cool deal if you can do that.
totally, yeah, with the energy of the wave and the swell.
Yeah.
I guess that's the same as when I've never tried it, but when I have lots of friends who do it, but when they do that pumping thing, it's like trying to gather the energy, and it's
pretty neat.
It looks really fun. I gotta admit.
It looks like it'd be a good core workout too.
Yeah.
So how long has Tofino Paddle Surf been around?
We opened in 2009.
Wow, 11 years.
Yeah.
And so the location I was at, what was that again? Was that Mackenzie Beach?
It was at Mackenzie Beach. Yeah.
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 So where's the new location you were mentioning?
We're still there at Mackenzie Beach at the Tinwis at the same resort there. But they had like a little hut right down on the beach.
Okay.
So they moved us down there, and we, expanded. We put a big like boardroom on the back, and we, kind of like expanded the front to have a bit of retail space, and we built a big deck, and we're just like living the dream down there. Like it is really awesome.
Right on.
Yeah. When we were building the deck, we just kept joking. We're just like, well, we don't really care if anyone shows up. We'll just hang here.
Yeah, seriously.
And enjoy the view, But yeah, it's pretty cool. We're happy.
Well, I hope to come check it out if Tofino, allows me to come in. I'm not sure. I know the doors are sort of open now, but I've been told it's pretty hard to find a campsite. So
yeah, you are definitely invited. Whether you can find a place to stay or not is probably another question. I would say if you're planning on it, even in the next couple months, you might want to look at accommodation right away, because someone told me today that they their parents tried to book a hotel room at the Tinwis in August, and it was like chock full. Can't get a room.
Wow.
Little tidbit there.
Thanks for that. Piece of info.
Well, we're trying to build a little vacation rental now. I saved up money my whole life and got together with a few people. We bought a little piece of property, so hopefully we'll have a place for you to stay sooner than later.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, because I was going to ask, what's the future for you? What do you see in terms of the paddle school, or what's next for you?
Yeah, I'm just, I'm really encouraging. We have some really great longtime staff, Jake, and now my son's working with us, and just really, encouraging them to kind of take some ownership and really work as a team, and we're getting a little bit more into the coaching, and we've been doing some kind of video coaching and different stuff like that, and it's just exciting, like the level of surfing and SUP surfing and stuff, and the clientele is changing, so we're kind of trying to adapt with that. And we're doing some kind of remote stuff with one of the local airline, like float plane companies, Leo Air. And we're going to do some like heli stuff and some float plane adventures. It's just all very exciting. And then my kind of personal future, near future goals is just to keep surfing my brains out and get my garden going, and get our little vacation rental started, and we're building a little cabin and get moved out onto our property, and just hang out.
Sounds like the perfect bucket list. I mean,
it's pretty short, there's no hot air balloons or anything like that in there, but that's all right.
Short but perfect. Yeah. So, other than surfing, then, I'm curious, you don't watch television, that's fine, but what else are you stoked about? You mentioned gardening just now.
Yeah, I'm super stoked on learning, more about gardening. I love wildcrafting. just kind of anything that's in season at the time, nettles. I love picking the clover and really kind of getting in that groove of kind of eating the stuff that's growing around me, because I know that's probably the best for me.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to learn more about that. That's something I'd like to be able to focus on more. And yeah, and just supporting my family, really, my kids, my granddaughter. I take her surfing. She's only 2, but she loves it.
Wow.
Loves
That's
it.
amazing.
Like the waves. I want to go in the waves.
Yeah.
And all my nieces and nephews, and just staying close to family is a really big priority. So I'm really stoked that we have a big family and everyone's here. So that makes me really happy. And yeah, just continuing to do my best to help, kind of preserve our precious planet.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep it going. I thank you for all
Yeah.
Yeah, I thank you for all your efforts you're doing, and I'll pitch in however I can. Hey, so before I let you go, we're coming up here on the hour. I'm wondering, you've done all these cool things, surfed all over the world, championships, Olympics, having children, all these things. I'm curious, what are you the most proud of?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I mean, I haven't really ever thought about this, but I would probably say one of the things that I'm most proud of is that I really, it's not even like I try, but I do live in the moment. And I really try to enjoy every day like it potentially could be my last. And if I can't do that, it upsets me in the day. But I really do enjoy every day for what it is. And I think that, yeah, I'm proud that I can do that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I will say this, that during this COVID time, I was working during the first few months of it from home. And then I was supposed to go back to work sometime in May. And then they called me a few days before and said, actually, we're laying you off for the summer. Your job will resume in September. And they were telling me like as if I was going to be bummed out or something. I mean, I went crazy. I was stoked. I'm like, that is the best news I've heard all day. Like I was so happy. Yeah. I mean,
that's awesome. I'm happy for you.
And so I find that, doing that, I was able to start focusing more and make sure that I do my yoga practice every day and things like that. And so I find that when I'm doing those things for myself and I'm operating in that frequency, I feel what you're saying. Like every day feels full of joy, and there seems to be a lot more possibilities. Like just in these past few weeks, operating with this kind of mindset, I'm thinking, I can't go back to thinking any other way, because when you start thinking, when money is not the priority and you start thinking about happiness or family or something else as monetary value, it sort of changes everything.
Yeah. I know it really opens up like a whole realm of potential, really, for all sorts of things. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, thank you. So, okay, Catherine, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to me. This was really rad. And before I let you go, do you have anything, you want to say to the audience, or plug, or find you on this network or that one?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty ill prepared when it comes to that, but I do just want to say that, if you guys are in Tofino and you've come to our shop, or you come to our shop, and we really honestly value each and every person that walks through our doors. We're a very small business, and we appreciate every person that comes to high five and surf with us.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. I felt that. I felt like I made friends when I was there. It wasn't just a lesson, like people were interested in me, and yeah, it was a really great experience.
Oh, cool. I'm really happy to hear that. Well, it's great meeting you when you were out, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Yeah, we will be talking again, and I'm going to pay attention. I'll stay in the loop with you on that vacation rental, so I have somewhere to stay.
Right on.
It's funny, when we started talking, I could see you and your laundry. Now it's just totally dark.
Oh God, I'm so sorry.
No, it's cool.
I got to work on the circadian rhythm. I can't turn the lights on.
Perfect. No, it's great. Yeah, I'll feel those vibes. All right, Catherine, thank you so much. Mahalo to you, and stay stoked.
You too.